In this video, we're going to go over subtracting fractions. You should have already watched the videos to know how to add fractions. And remember, to add fractions, you need a common denominator. The same is true for subtracting fractions. So let's do a couple examples here. 7/9 minus 4/9. If you have a common denominator, you simply write the denominator down and then subtract the numerators. So 7 minus 4 is 3. Just like when we added fractions, we added the numerators. Then we look at our answer here, 3/9, and we want to see if we could reduce that. And yes, you could divide the top and bottom by 3. And that gives you 1/3. So that is our answer for this problem. All right, let's do the next one. We have 7/12 minus 5/18. This does not have a common denominator, so we're going to have to find the common denominator. You can use any method you like to get the common denominator. I like to do it this way. I think what number goes into 12 and 18? 6. 6 into 12 is 2. 6 into 18 is 3. So, see, the least common denominator is going to be 36. So I'm going to have 36 for my denominator. Now remember, I could just sort of extend my fraction bars here and multiply the top and bottom by whatever number is going to give me a 36 in the denominator. So 12 times 3 is 36, which gives 21 in the numerator here. And 18 times 2 is 36, gives me a 10 in the numerator here. And now I have a common denominator of 36, so I could do 21 minus 10 and 11/36. So you can see it's very similar to adding fractions, except you're subtracting the numerators. Here's a problem with mixed numbers. There are two ways to do problems with mixed numbers. One is to change the mixed numbers to improper fractions and then go ahead and subtract, making sure you have a common denominator. The second is where you're going to use a borrowing technique. The first method I'm going to use here is to see if I can just subtract the fractions as they are. If they have a common denominator, my problem is I have 2 minus 4, so there's a problem here. This means I'm going to have to use some other technique. So how about we do this by changing both to improper fractions? They have a common denominator, which is nice, so they're both going to have a denominator of 5. So I have 5 times 7, which is 35, plus 2, that's 37 fifths. And for the next one, I've got 5 times 3 is 15, plus 4, that's 19 fifths. And now I have a common denominator, so the denominator is 5, and I do 37 minus 19, which is 18 fifths. Now that's the answer, or we could write it as a mixed number, 3 and 3/5. Now this method always works. The only caveat is that you might have larger numbers to deal with. For instance, if this was 17 and it was 2/9, you'd end up having to do 17 times 9, etc. If you have a calculator handy, that's not too difficult though, but without a calculator you would, you might have to go out and do your multiplication by hand. All right, let's do another problem using that method. So let's say we've got 8 and 4/9 minus 6 and 7/9. All right, so put the video on pause and try this by changing both of those to improper fractions and then subtracting. All right, so here we go. We have got 9ths for both of them, so that's nice. So we have 9 times 8 is 72, plus 4 is 76/9. And 6 times 9 is 54, plus 7, which is going to be 61/9. And then I could subtract to get 15/9. All right, now this is not reduced because there's a common factor of 3 in both of these. So if you divide the top and bottom by 3, I get 5/3. So you could leave your answer as 5/3 or 1 2/3. How about if we had something like 10 and 8/11 minus 3 and 2/11? In this case, the 8/11 minus 2/11, I don't really have a problem. So if you've got a common denominator and it's easy to subtract the fractions, we won't get any negative numbers, then you can go ahead and just subtract the whole numbers. 10 minus 3 is 7. And then subtract the fractions. 8/11 minus 2/11 is 6/11. So you can see why it's kind of nice sometimes to just go ahead and leave it as a mixed number. Also, oftentimes in books, you'll see it written this way in a vertical format. It's easier to do. So you could subtract your whole numbers, which is 10 minus 3 is 7, and then you do it 8/11 minus 2/11 is 6/11. So my answer is 7 and 6/11. Watch out for this common mistake. If the problem was 10 and 2/11 minus 3 and let's say 8/11, some people write 7 and 6/11. That's wrong. 2 minus 8 is not 6. So you got to be careful. That's not the way to do that problem. So let's work on how we could do 10 and 2/11 minus 8/11. So how can we do 10 and 2/11 minus 3 and 8/11? We could do it the same way we did it earlier in the video by changing them both to improper fractions. So let's do that. That's one way. 11 times 10 is 110 plus 2. So I'm going to do this at the bottom of the page. That'll be 112/11 minus, and then I'm going to change 3 and 8/11 as well. So 11 times 3 is 33 plus 8. That's 41/11. And now I have a common denominator, so I can go ahead and subtract. 112 minus 41 is 71/11. So that method still works. And if you want to change it to a mixed number, you just do 71 divided by 11, which is 6 and 5/11. Okay. Now, another way of doing it is by using what's called a borrowing technique. And I'm going to look at this number 10 and 2/11, the top number, and see if we could alter that a certain way by rewriting 10 as 9 plus 1. Okay, so that's 9 plus 1 and 2/11. Remember, that means 9 plus 1 plus 2/11. And then if I rewrite 1 and 2/11 as an improper fraction, I could write that as 13/11. Now, that's not how you usually write a mixed number, but it's going to help us in this particular problem because it's going to be easier to subtract if we are able to write 10 and 2/11 is 9 and 13/11. All right. So how could we do that? How could we change 10 and 2/11 to 9 and 13/11? It's by borrowing. All right. Now, if I borrow from the 10, there'll only be 9, and I have 1 and 2/11 left. Notice something kind of interesting here. When you change 1 and 2/11 to the improper fraction, look right here, the new numerator is just 2 plus 11 because you're doing 11 times 1, which is going to be still the denominator, 11, plus 2, whatever the numerator is. So if you're going to borrow, here's an easy way to do it. The denominator stays the same, and the new numerator will be whatever 11 plus 2 is. You add the numerator and denominator. So I can write 9 and 13/11. Now, if you prefer to do an intermediate step and write 9 plus 1 and 2/11 like I did here, and then change it to 9 and 13/11, that's fine. All right. Now we can subtract the 3 and 8/11. So that gives me 6 and 5/11. Same answer I got below. So this is a method where you leave some kind of a mixed number, but you borrow. And some people like to write the borrowing like this. See if this helps you. When they borrow, sometimes they just cross it out, and then they're going to add the 11. They sort of do it in their head that way. So if you did that, then you would have 9 minus 3, which is 6. And you see that's going to be 13 minus 8 and 5/11. So you can even use less space on your paper if it all makes sense to you. It really kind of depends on what you're comfortable with. And of course, you could always resort to taking the mixed numbers, changing them to improper fractions, and subtracting. On the next video, I'm going to do some more problems using this method.